But it's just, it all comes down to taking action. If you take action enough times, like eventually something is going to work out.
So I'm here with Ryan Helms, and he is an amazing person that I met actually through LinkedIn. We've been basically two digital marketers that cross paths on LinkedIn, which I find a lot today. And I wanted to actually ask you, Ryan, tell me more a little bit about yourself. Before this, we caught up a little bit, and then I found out a lot about you that was amazing, because seeing another content creator and talking with one content creator on this podcast is always refreshing. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you're trying to build, and actually what's a proud moment you've had in your life, either this year or throughout your whole life.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, we talked a little bit about the context of your podcast. So a proud moment for me was, I guess, let's see, it's been about 8 months or so, August of 2019. I hung up my name badge at my corporate job and walked away to focus on my content creation agency. And yeah, so that was kind of a proud moment. But, if we were talking 3 years ago and you would have even said anything about being a creator or a content creator or anything like that, I would have thought you were crazy. Cause I'd never done anything creative like that. And I had never like created a piece of content. I'd never done a podcast. I'd never like edited a video or anything like that. So like I would have been like laughing at you if you would have said that. So like it's been a long, interesting journey of just like kind of diving in and putting one foot in front of the other.
Amazing. And so I got in contact with you because of Melville, and then now you're telling me a lot about another business as well. So how did you get into the SaaS products, and at the same time, how did you get into content creation?
Yeah, so if we take it chronologically, so I guess when was it? 2017, November 2017. I was getting a little burnt out at work. I'll make a long story short. Was getting a little burnt out at work. Took a solo trip to Africa, so Kenya and Tanzania to be specific, and just met a lot of cool people that were traveling the world and doing cool stuff. And I was like, how can I do something similar? And I realized that the reason that I really couldn't is because I was an idiot when it came to my financials, and I wasn't in a position where I could take a lot of the risk. I could, but I wasn't comfortable taking a lot of the risk that some of these other people were. And I found out is that the reason they were able to do what they could do is because they were in a financial position, right? They had met people that had sold their houses, their cars. They were traveling the world full time, people that had online businesses. And here I was with like a nice sports car, a nice condo in the city, and a decent corporate job. But the bills were not too far away from the income, So I was like, there's no way I could do anything like that. So kind of smartened up with my finances, went through a journey of like, it was pretty simple, right? I did the math. I was like, okay, if I want to like be financially free, like I'm not making enough money right now to offset all this stuff. So I got rid of a lot of my bills, and then got in the world of side hustle. How can I speed up the process of making more income? And I did a couple things, launched a Kickstarter. That was really my first creative endeavor, right? I figured out how to design a workbook I actually did it in Google Sheets. This is how uncreative I am. The first time I did it in Google Sheets, and then I did it in Canva, and then I did it in Adobe InDesign. But I ended up raising I think like 14,000, if I remember correctly, on Kickstarter for that project. And then that was the first thing I ever did to like sell anything. And then from there, I started a podcast because I realized how much that project sucked because I had no network. So I was like, I just want to meet a bunch of people. And then I met both of my partners now in both the different companies through podcasting. And, the first one was the agency that we started. And that's the one that allowed me to kind of quit my job. So the first 8 months of that, it was just a side hustle, and then ended up starting to make more money than I was in my day job, and quit my job, focused on that. And then, dove into the SaaS here just very, very recently, 3 or 4 months ago. And, that's been quite a journey. So that's the high level view. We can dive into whatever that you want, but that's kind of like the chronologically how it happened. Africa, launched a Kickstarter, launched a podcast, met both my partners in podcast.
Oh, I love that. It's cool because I noticed you're wearing a ClickFunnels shirt, and I am
Yeah.
definitely a funnel hacker too. So I
Yeah.
understand your knowledge base in the digital marketing world, and I respect that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say, the whole idea of just quitting your job from a side hustle, I've experienced that too, and mine was a YouTube channel. I had a job in the entertainment industry that was cool. I was going around the world, going to festivals, had an expense account, was doing the whole Hollywood life. And then I was just miserable. So I wanted to do something that really inspired me. So I picked up a camera and started shooting b-boying or breakdancing. And because I'm a DJ and a really big hip hop enthusiast. And that channel grew and grew so much that it allowed me to quit my job and start my own company.
Nice.
And that's what your story and my story, I feel like that a lot of people want to do that as well, because I think that people think the whole idea of security in a 9-to-5 job is the way to go for life, but there's some times where you want to fly, you want to do your own thing, you want to have more freedom, and you found that.
Yep.
And for you, when I was just reading a lot of things about on your profile on LinkedIn and with Melville, you really love voice, you really love podcasting. And what is it about podcasting that you think is so special and people should take advantage of it?
Yeah, I think it's the most intimate content platform that's out there. I don't think there's anything that comes close to it. And I mean, I respect and acknowledge all of the platforms and their purpose. YouTube, written content, everything, social media. I understand everything, but I don't think there's anything as intimate as podcasting. And a lot of it has to do with where your audience is when they're consuming the content. So if you're on YouTube, if you're reading a blog, there's typically a lot of other stuff going on. You got other browsers open. You got a bunch of there's just a bunch of noise around you. And when you're on a podcast, if you look at where most people are listening to podcasts, it's in their car, it's in a gym working out, it's in these places where they don't have their phone in their hand, they don't have 18 browser tabs open, you know what I mean? So it's a very intimate platform. So you're speaking to people and they're paying attention to you. So that's why I think it's really, really valuable. And that's from when you're in front of your audience, right? Or you're trying to grow an audience. And it's also equally beneficial if you're a business owner and you're trying to talk to your dream clients, meaning have a conversation with them. You can interview them, and then you can small talk beforehand. You can small talk after. For all I know right now, you could have did this because you wanted to talk to me. I don't know. But seriously, it's a great tool to develop a relationship with the people that you want to as well, outside of just an audience.
No, it's so true. I mean, that's the reason why I talk to you, actually, and a lot of people through LinkedIn, is because it's growing a network, and it's just recording conversations. It's recording a meeting. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
A much more intimate meeting that provides value and education for other people who are listening. Because I do agree with you. When you are listening to a podcast, you're either on a treadmill, working out, cooking food in the car, especially in the car. Well, not now since coronavirus, we're all stuck inside. So now it's funny because now that we're stuck inside, I don't know when to listen to my audiobooks anymore. I'm a car audiobook podcast guy.
Yeah.
So when you started your first podcast and you started getting into it, what were kind of the things that you found were the best practices, when you were creating your podcast? Because I'm sure when you first started off, I suck right now, and I'm sure you're a master at this. So for all the sucky podcasters out there, what's some of the best practices that you've learned?
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is just acknowledge that your first 20 episodes will suck. I mean, it goes hand in hand with anything. If you're writing blogs, your first 20 blogs are going to suck. If you're, creating YouTube videos, your first 20 videos are going to suck relative to where you'll be 2 years from now. Right. So just acknowledge that they're not going to be great and be okay with that. Just know that getting started is what matters. So when you get started, I would say we are no longer, this is what I've been telling people recently, we are no longer in the age of general podcast. So you cannot create, it's like a general store, right? Like you go in there and you can buy anything that you want to. People don't want to listen to any and everything. There's plenty of other people doing that really good. There's all the Joe Rogans, there's the news things, there's NPRs. Like there's plenty of other big fish out there that are doing these general podcasts. If you actually want to grow an audience, you have to niche down. I know it's said in a bunch of other contexts, but a lot of people don't talk about it in the podcast context. You have to talk about something specifically. All your subject matter has to be around something specifically, because that's why people are going to come to you, because you're the expert on that thing. Maybe you don't get 1 million downloads, but maybe you get 100,000 really, really, really focused downloads that are way better than 1 million downloads of people that don't really care about you. So like, that's my biggest piece of advice, is just like, figure out what you want to talk about and just don't deviate it from it. So like, for example, my podcast, Hustle to Freedom, like I interview people with side hustles, and I keep it very specific. Like when you go to get on my podcast, you have to check one of these boxes. You have to either have made over $2,000 a month with your podcast or with your side hustle, or you have to, within the past 3 years, taken your side hustle full time. Because I don't want to talk to people that have been entrepreneurs for the past 10 years, because they're a little bit disconnected and from, people aren't going to relate to them as much. So I have a time criteria for people that are entrepreneurs. And then I have a monetary criteria for people that are still in the side hustle phase. Because I realized when I didn't have that criteria, they were turning into coaching sessions, because people that weren't making any money yet were like, hey, I just want to talk to you and figure out how I can get my business start making money. I'm like, yeah, it's not really what I want to have my podcast about. I don't want to be the coach. So I think that just to illustrate an example of what I mean by being niche, like that, those are always the people I'm talking to. Like I'm never interviewing somebody about just like whatever, right? It's always super focused, and it might be about a bunch of random stuff, but the people always fit a specific avatar so that my audience can be like, this person is like me.
Mm-hmm. No, that's right. I think with the amount of podcasts that are out there, it's like YouTube channels, it's like Instagram, it's like everything out there. It's just oversaturated because the technology has made it easy for people to become content creators. And I feel the same way with videos and YouTube. And
Yep.
with you and with the side hustle, that's such a great way of screening people and making sure that you don't have someone that has nothing to do with your target audience.
Yep.
Because for me, when we talked about this really is for people who want a side hustle, but that side hustle is a creative one. It's actually a side creative passion. And
Yep.
it's because when I was in my 9-to-5 job, I just loved to film. I went to film school and then got a full-time job in Hollywood. And I thought that was amazing, but I wasn't creative. I believe in creativity. I believe in its therapeutic, benefits, as well as its need and impact in the business world and in society. And so even with podcasts, when you come up with these podcasts and these ideas and for companies and for products, like how do you get into your creative mode, your creative flow?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have like a specific time that like, I don't have like a routine that like gets me in the flow state or like something that I do. For me, it's just like, I just try to take action. Like I try not to overthink things. I just try to like do. Like for me, it's so hard for me to read a book. Like I can't tell you last time I read a book from like, beginning to end, because like I read something and I'm like, I got to go do that right now. Like other people, they want to read 4 books and then like plot about how they can, strategically implement it into their business. And I'm just like, oh man, that's awesome. I got to go do it right now. So like it comes that way with like creative stuff as well. Like I just launched a YouTube channel. Today is a week ago. And from when I decided to launch a YouTube channel to till I put out the first 5 videos, it was less than 3 weeks. So like, I just do it. Like, just go. Like I don't have any other answer besides that. Like I don't wait for the feeling or for the time to be right. I just start creating.
I think that the majority of the people that I've talked to, a lot of the actually professional creators, are the ones that just take action. Because if you wait too long to wait for that muse to hit you, you get to a point where you don't complete anything. And it is actually just taking that first step is the best way to actually put out art. Another artist that I talked to, and her name is Nancy Hillis. She's a fine artist, and she says, "Be okay with ugly paintings, and be okay with a crappy track. Be okay with a crappy video. Be okay with a crappy audio. Whatever it is, just do it, because it's also practice. It's compounding. And then as you get those hours in, you're a master. It's like a video where, you know, I can just pick up a camera. I can shoot and edit a video in an hour, and I can make it look solid because I've done a lot of crappy videos in my life.
Yep.
And so with a lot of that, I've learned that, you know, people like yourself, taking that first step of action is actually what I give advice to a lot of people who are stuck at a job and you're like, I really want to just, you know, sing full time. Like, go and sing.
Yeah.
For you to go and sing. Go and sing in the shower, sing when you get home, sing on the weekend, and maybe in 10 years probably be the next, I don't know, like Adele, and you never knew it because you never did it. And so with you, I know when it comes to content, we talked about this earlier, and you had the SaaS product, which is great, Melville, which is everybody, like, it's automated show notes or just show notes for a podcast, which is amazing. And
or YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same concept. Yeah. We're marketing it for podcasts, but yes, it applies to YouTube as well.
Oh, that's amazing. You know, let's talk more about it, because I love the idea of technology these days, making things really, really simple, and having show notes. I don't have show notes because of that fact of not having the time to transcribe it through rev.com and have someone to really portion it out into chapters or whatnot.
Yep.
And so we'd love to learn more about what you do at Melville.
Yeah. So the idea kind of came to be because our content marketing agency is focused on podcasting. That's what we do. So we work with a lot of top tier podcasters. Like, we do a podcast for ClickFunnels. We do a podcast for a bunch of people, like high end online internet marketers. And so I've been in the podcast space for a while. So before I even started the agency, like, I hated writing show notes for my personal podcast. And then, you know, we've got 30 or 40 clients now in our agency, and it's like, we're doing a ton of show notes. We have several people on our team that's their job. Like, that's what they do 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And so it was kind of like, how can we get more efficient? Like, how do we get away from like having to spend so much time writing show notes? Just because it's not complex. There's like a formula there, right? There's you have this section, and this section, and it's very defined. So I was like, I wonder if there's a way we could automate this. So I was actually just browsing on Reddit, and I saw some functionalities that was happening that I was like, man, like, if we could turn around and apply this to show notes, that would be super cool. So this was actually this was probably around like December 18th, somewhere around there, because I remember I was traveling and I was in Utah for an event that I was out there at, and I text my buddy Mark, and I was like, hey man, here's the idea. I sent him like 8 Facebook Messenger messages, like voice messages, like back to back. They were like 3 minutes each, like telling him like, here's what it could do, here's what it would need to do, here's why it would make us money, here's why people would love it. And he basically wrote me back like one message. He was like, let's talk on Monday. Basically, he was going to research it and try to poke holes in the idea like he did with all my other ideas. And we chatted on Monday when I was back in Atlanta, and he was like, hey, like, technologically, like, this is feasible. Like, I mocked something up over the weekend just to see if I would be able to build it. And it's definitely doable. And I couldn't find anybody else that's doing it, which could be a good sign, could also be a bad sign. So we spent January, February chit-chatting, like working out details. We were meeting like once or twice a week. March, we were meeting like every day of the week, like plan. Like, we were like, all right, let's do about what we call like a validation run. So we spent from April 6th to end of April 30th, trying to get people to sign up. We were basically like, let's see if we can get 100 people to sign up for this thing. If they will, then it's a cool idea. And it'd be worth investing time and money to like go through and develop it. So that's what we did. We got like 108 people to sign up in that time period. And so we're moving ahead with the idea, but the whole concept behind it is to automate the process of creating show notes. So you upload an episode and the AI weights the content in your episode. So you tell it, like, you just give it like one sentence. You're like, hey, this episode is about this. And that's all it needs to do its magic. It goes through once it knows the context of the episode from you, it starts to weight all the discussion in the context. So, and it even knows like who's the guest and who's the host, and it puts more weight on the guest reply because they're the one that's going to, in theory, that should be providing most of the responses. So it weights those discussion topics based on the context. It compiles a summary based on that. So that's typically going to be, somewhere between 4 and 8 sentences long, maybe 2 paragraphs of a summary. And then it also weights specific points in that content. And that becomes like the key point. So you have a summary, then you have these 6 to 8 bullet points underneath that with timestamps based around the main ideas of the episode. So somebody could skim down through it and be like, okay, here's what they were talking about. Here's the point of the episode when they were talking about it. And then it does a lot of other cool stuff because it can weight the content, right? It pulls out all the keywords from your content. So those can turn into hashtags. It can turn into the keywords that you put in your podcast host. You can do a lot of cool stuff with that. And then it probably won't be ready for the launch of the product, but the other really cool feature that we're putting in it is along the keyword thought is we're actually going to be going out and comparing your content to what's being searched on Google and providing you with long tail keyword phrases. And so you'll know the search volume and the competition around long tail keyword phrases as it relates to your content. So why would you do that, Ryan? Well, it can help you name your episode titles, right? Because you can name them in relation to what people are actually searching on Google. So whether it's a YouTube video, just a podcast episode, you're repurposing it into a blog, whatever it is, you're going to have some data on what people are searching for this type of content, right? Is it a competitive phrase? Is the search volume high? All that kind of stuff. So like that's the basic functionality of what it's going to do. And, we really want to save people time and money because you're either doing it yourself and if you value your time, right? A lot of people don't think about this. So we actually, when we launched it, we built the landing page, people were asking us like, how much does it cost? And we're like, well, actually, we don't know yet. Like we're still going through all these thought experiments. And then we actually came up with a price, like a per minute price for processing it because it's based on how long your episode is. And then like people are like, that's too expensive. So then we're like, I don't think they're thinking about it, right? Like, how can we make it more clear to them? How can we show the value of the product? So we actually put a calculator, right? It was like, figure out how much, did you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, if you select, I think if you select like, there's one option on there.
Yeah. How much is your assistant cost? And then how much is your episode?
Yeah. But if you select, I do it, not like I have an assistant, it says, how much do you value your time?
That's right.
Right. Is it $15 an hour? Like how much are you worth? Right. Because once you put that in, then so it does 2 things. It's mainly psychological, right? It shows them that, okay, if I value my time and I'm spending 45 minutes writing show notes for my podcast and I think I'm worth $50 an hour, right? It's that you can easily do the math and figure that out, how much you're worth. Like, does it make sense for me to do this or does it make sense for me to automate it, right? Or if I have a VA, right, and I'm paying them $8 an hour and it's taking them, it's a 45-minute show. What we see is it typically 1.5 times the length of the episode for somebody to write show notes. So let's just say it takes them an hour and a half. Let's just say that, right? If I'm paying them $8 an hour, right? Does it make sense for me to spend $12 on every episode, or should I pay $12 a month for this platform versus 12 times 4 for a VA to do it? So like we built that calculator to help people go through that thought experiment of, is this product worth it? Just because we were like, how do you overcome objections, right? So this comes back to like ClickFunnels and online marketing, right? How can you overcome objections like without like talking to somebody, right? So we built this calculator to help us do that. So
it's just genius, yeah. Because when I actually clicked on it, I thought about my VA that I use for my podcasting, and if I were to add show notes on top, he would charge a little bit more. And it comes back to actually the topic that I actually talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and creative people out there about delegation. And making sure that you don't spend up too much of your time on things that don't either A, make money, or are towards your passion or towards your ultimate goal. Because automation to me is just such a beautiful thing of technology these days. And I think it was Brandon Bouchard that said, you know, you need to have some kind of system that automates and sells your markets and sells your products every single day, just automated. And I took that to heart. You know, I have an automated email outreach system. I have an automated, podcasting system, and also a outreach system on LinkedIn, and just in different types of ways for me to get my sales automated, because I don't like doing it. You know, I personally like building my company, building my product, and being creative. And so when you were creating your company and your content agency right now, how were you able to train the team or even trust the AI in order for you to feel, okay, I can delegate without having to worry that the quality is going to suffer?
Yeah. So this was especially tough for me because I suffer from something. And what it is I suffer from being good at a lot of things, but great at nothing. So, and as an entrepreneur, they say that's the worst possible thing that you could have, is being good at everything and great at nothing, because it's really hard to delegate. Because I'm telling you, when we started our content marketing agency, earlier I was saying, if you were talking to me 3 years ago and you were like, hey, you run a content marketing agency, I would have laughed at you, or if you would have called me a creative. But when we started our agency, all my partner could do was edit audio. He didn't have any creative juices in him besides audio editing. So we were a podcast company, super valuable skill. But the reason we started our company is because we saw a huge gap in the market where people were offering audio editing and show notes and maybe a blog, but they weren't offering anything else. They weren't offering any of the additional services to make it holistic. So everything that we offered, we were writing long form blogs in a first person creative style. We were doing graphics, video editing, micro video content for social media copy, social media scheduling, email copy, writing, scheduling emails. We were doing everything. And I learned all those skills while I was working my 9-to-5 job. Because we were just hey, let's see if we can sign any clients. And when we did, we're all right, let's figure it out. When we signed our first client to do a podcast launch, I think our first client paid us $4,000, and we had never done a podcast launch before. We had no idea what we were doing, zero. And since then, he probably recommended us at least 4 other clients since then. And when we started with him, we had no idea what we were doing. He didn't know that, but he might have known it a little bit, but he trusted us, I guess. But as we started to scale up these services, I had never done video editing in my life. I'd never created a micro clip for social media in my life, but I just learned how to do it all, YouTube and stuff. All right, we just sold this. Let's go figure it out and see how we can do it. And I just had trust in myself that I could do it. So back to your point about delegation, it sucks when you can do all that stuff, right? It helps you get started easier, but it makes it really hard to delegate. Because you know how you want it done and you know that you can do it. And you're oh, well, I can just do it quicker. Why would I take the time to send this person a message and do this? I could have it done by then. But if you want to scale, you have to. I feel like you need to put yourself in a position to where it's sink or swim on if I don't delegate this, I'm not going to be able to do everything that I'm supposed to do today, and the client's gonna be pissed and leave us. So we slowly started scaling. We scaled audio people first, so that my partner could do more sales stuff, and then we brought on writers, because I was writing show notes in the beginning too.
Wow.
I was going to Starbucks at 5 a.m. before work and writing show notes and doing graphics and all kind of stuff like this. And so we hired a show notes writer, then we hired, more and more people. And now we got a team of 15. And now what I do is every time that I do something, I write it down. So I have a running list. Every task that I do, I write it down, and I try to figure out how to delegate that. So that it's the delegation list. It's the things that I'm doing that I ultimately don't want to be doing. And I just try to figure out who on my team can do it. And what I've realized is you just have to ask your team, what all can they do? Because a lot of people have hidden talents, or they have desires to learn stuff. And instead of just hiring new people, you can just give more work to the people that you already have. But yeah, that's kind of how I approach it. It's figure out what I'm doing and try not to ever do it again. I write it down and put it on a list and figure out how I can, like, as quickly as possible, get rid of it and just not be like, I don't even try to like focus on like the minor details, because I feel like details slow people down. Like if it looks good and it's to the standard that we expect with our agency, like it rides. Like I'm not like, if I see one minor thing, like I looked at a graphic today and I'm like, man, it would look really, I think it would look better if that word wasn't in gold color, it was in white color. But there's no way I'm going to slow down to either me fix it or me, like little things like that. I feel like is what slows people down like immensely. Like I'm in the camp of like good enough is done. Like if you can, maybe you're one of those people that wants to be perfect and extra particular, but you'll never scale your business that way.
That's right. No, it's so true that I used to be a perfectionist. I'm a recovering perfectionist. Like I was the kind of person that had to do everything for my business, everything on set. You know, I'll be shooting, editing, producing, camera, grip, lighting, getting the food, getting the coffee, talking to the client. It's too much. You can't do that because your creative mind won't be able to be fully creative. And that's what you got paid for. You got paid. I got paid to be creative. And the same thing when it comes to a lot of the people that you delegate to. I mean, you hire them for a reason, you know, and they're kind of in your shoes as well. They're like, we were paid to get this job done, so trust me with this. And I think that for you to be able to scale to 15 people, it's impressive, because having to manage a team and making sure that they are doing things that are good enough and to the standard, it requires a good amount of leadership.
Yeah.
And with a content creation agency, and you having to manage creative people in a way,
yeah.
How is that different from managing, let's say, engineers who are creating your app?
Yeah. So when I was still working my day job, in my day job, I did manage a team of 14 people. And by the time I quit my job, I had a team of 14 people that I was managing my day job that were not creatives at all. I was in the supply chain field. I worked for a big chemical company. And I had a team of 9 at the time in my creative agency. So in total, I suck at math. That's like 23 people or something like that. It was a lot of people, but 9 of them were creatives and the other 14 were just like people working in a corporate environment. So it's definitely different. But people are people. Like at the end of the day, like you have to treat people the same way. People want the same things. I just I haven't noticed that it's like a distinct enough difference to really even differentiate. I just treat people like people at the end of the day. Like our team loves working with us. And I don't just say that, like it's kind of, I tell people, I don't know what I did to create such a good culture within our team, but everybody like loves working with us. And I just try to treat people how I would want to be treated. Like it's like a fine balance between like friendship and like being a boss, right? And being an owner of a company. I want people to enjoy chit-chatting, enjoy coming to work, like be fun to be around. Like I don't want to be super serious because I don't want to be around super serious. I was around super serious people all the time in the corporate world. I don't like it. I want people to like joke and have fun and cut up, but get the work done at the same time. So, and I think that's what most people want in it. So you just have to treat them like people and think about like what type of work environment would you want to come to? And it doesn't matter if it's in a corporate environment or in a creative field, like everyone's a person.
I love that you worked on your attractive character and you really built it up to make that culture. The expert secrets.
True.
No, it's still really cool that you treat your employees and also just your team with respect and making them feel like they're part of something more than just
and
a
I
job.
never call them employees.
Mm-hmm.
They're always team members.
Yeah.
And when we hire, at the bottom of every one of our ads or whatever you want to call it, job postings, it says we're not looking for freelancers and we're not looking for employees. We're looking for team members. So if that's what you want to be a part of, apply.
I dig that. And what was it about that when you put that up there and you got the applicants and then you got the people on your team, how have you seen the difference between that culture compared to the culture you had in corporations?
I think it's all about ownership.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I think that's a difference between like an employee mindset and a team mindset.
Yeah.
When you're on a team, like you have ownership, right? If you're thinking about like in football, like the quarterback, the running back, like they all have their jobs. And if they don't do it, then like shit falls apart. Right. So, but if you have an employee mindset, sometimes people don't pull their weight. Sometimes they don't, like, and a lot of times like in sports, you'll get benched. Like in the corporate field, like you could go years without pulling your weight before like somebody actually notices. So yeah, I think that's a big piece of it.
Yeah, it's true. And also just making sure that the people who are working with you, your team members, are working towards their passions and working towards their goals, and you're just kind of just cultivating a leader within your business. And how do you feel now that you're a creative agency, you have, you create content and you're making a lot of your podcasts and audio related content, and you now jumping into YouTube? Like, how do you feel about the transition from going, because you say you used to, of course, do some micro videos before, but going from one medium to another, how is that transition for you from like going from an audio to a video?
Yeah. Again, it was nothing that was planned. It was not a skill set that we had. We just followed the demand. Like we had a client that was like, "Hey, I want this to go on YouTube as well." And we've just learned the platform. We've learned that a lot of it doesn't translate well from platform to platform. Like you have a lot of times you need platform specific content.
Mm-hmm.
We have found that there can be a happy medium between podcast content and YouTube content. We have a client, their podcast is called Credit Repair Business Secrets. They're a SaaS company, and they teach people on credit education.
Oh, yeah.
And they have been able to really like bridge the gap between audio only podcast and video content. And it's just that edutainment factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to it's got to be short, right? 10 minutes, somewhere around there. It's got to be entertaining. You got to have energy. You got to have enthusiasm. And if you can bring that and bring some value, then like you can bridge the gap between both. But we just learned on the fly, man. Like honestly, just do they want it? All right, let's figure out how to do it. Let's do some research. And that's one of the reasons that I started a YouTube channel. I mean, we've been doing YouTube for clients for several months now, but I wanted to do it from a lead generation perspective, but also to get more intimate with the platform, because I hadn't been a creator on YouTube myself before. But I mean, most things you can watch videos, man, and you can learn. Like it took me about 2 hours to learn probably 80% about what I needed to know about getting content on YouTube and what performed well. And nothing's rocket science. Podcast isn't rocket science. YouTube's not rocket science. Like if you get out there and you try to learn it, like you can learn it. You can learn enough to be dangerous pretty dang quick.
Mm-hmm. No, I feel you. It's the same thing with video. I went to film school, right? But I'm seeing a lot of kids now who just pick up a nice Sony a7S III with this Sony's like a Zeiss lens, and they can kill it in 3 months.
Yep.
Completely professional in 3 months. Take up a wedding, go to branded content, do music videos, and really blow up in about a year or two. Where back in the day, you would have to get a real camera with film that you would have to get developed at Kodak and get a DP or somebody who can actually operate that camera. You would have to direct them. And I think it's beautiful how technology has made it easy for a lot of us today, and a lot of entrepreneurs to actually become content creators.
Yeah, and I think it helps everybody step their game up as well, because when you have more and more people coming into the space and it's easier to get into the space, then you can't be like there's more competition coming in, so you can't keep doing the same thing you were doing. That's why we keep evolving in our agency, is because there's more and more competition coming in trying to do what we do. So we're like, all right, how do we keep differentiating ourselves? Like, how do we keep getting better? So it's like a content creator, if that's what you're doing, like you're saying, and you got kids coming in and they're buying a camera and they're teaching themselves, like, how do you continue to like better your skill set and not just get comfortable being good enough to get that next gig, right? Because soon enough, there's going to be somebody better than you, charging less than you, getting that gig from you if you're bringing the same skill set to the table.
So true. And I think that now I've talked to a lot of content creators and a lot of digital marketers, and it's melding together, right? Because the content creator, the artist, has to find a way to market their art
Yep.
and their expression in order for them to get the views and the attention and the likes, so that they can get the influence that they can get for bigger shows, bigger contracts, bigger ideas, more money to invest in their projects. And a lot of digital marketers now are realizing, oh, okay, I can actually create a video with my phone and then post it
Yep.
on YouTube and then create a funnel for it and then put some Facebook ads. I have to be creative right now. Okay, how do I use a phone and make it look good? And I mean, it's interesting to me to see this melding, because I had a really great interview with a futurist, a music producer who also is into the whole futurist movement. He said the future is really going to be split between two types of people: the ones who create content and the ones who consume it. And I'm seeing it more actually these days because of the coronavirus and the lockdown, with the people who just sit and watch the phone and just scroll, and the people who are like me and you. Every single day, I'm making a video, a podcast, a blog post, whatever it is. Every single day, I'm creating something.
Yeah, I mean that's everything, man. You're either a consumer or a producer, right? Even from a business standpoint, right? You're either a consumer or you're a producer, right? Are you the one out there materialistic, buying everything, the newest car, the biggest house, etc.? Or are you the one out there just focused on being a producer so that you can consume later? A lot of people just they're so uneven, right? They're like their consumer levels at like 10 and their producer levels at like 2. And like I was saying earlier, that's how I was. My whole thing was flipped for a long time. Like I was way backwards, and now it's like the tables have turned. Like get producer levels 10 and consumer levels 2. And I think that's where, like, as a country, that's where we struggle. Like everybody wants to care what other people think about them and what car they're driving, and like it sucks, man. I was there. That's no fun way to live. Like when you don't have any, like we paid off our house, we don't have any bills at all, and it's such a liberating place to be. That's why I was like, when it came time to like quit my job, I was just like, peace. Because if this thing doesn't work, it's okay, because I don't have any bills. Like it's such a great place to be if you are working a 9 to 5 and you wanna get out there and you wanna start something. Like figure out your finances first. Like get in a good place there, because it was exactly 2 months after we paid our house off that I quit my job. Because I was in a position, man. The tables had turned, because most people in 9 to 5, the company has all the power because you need their money. When you no longer need their money, you have the power. So you can either quit or you can get a raise. Think about walking in to ask for a raise when you don't need them anymore.
Yep.
Who has the power? Right. So like for me, that whether you want to raise or you want to quit your job, like if you want the power, you just have to get in a position where you don't need their money anymore.
No, I feel you. I think the whole idea of finances and also being an entrepreneur and also as a creative is very important, because there's the conversation I have with a lot of creatives on here about balancing your voice and your creative work and then a livelihood and a career and making money. And then how do you make those two meet in the same world where I can
marketing.
Exactly. And it's funny. and it's funny that, the more I'm doing these conversations, the more I'm getting into it, how important marketing is. And also how important it is to understand that it's okay to create work that is going to be for someone else to either buy or consume or give value to. And it's okay, and there's going to be people out there who say, okay, I'm just going to create whatever the hell I want. Go do you, and they're probably going to create the most amazing thing in 10 years or in 5 years. And that's amazing. But I almost feel like it's you also have to think about how can your creativity also produce something valuable that people will want to buy, that people want to support, that people want to invest in. And, it's really cool that you talk about that whole financial evolution you went through. And what were the books or the inspirations that got you to flip your mindset? And what was that change of your mindset? And then you talked about, the power, right? Kind of like, who controls your money? Kind of like, the cash flow quadrant, what's the B's and I's, and of course the S and the E's right here. So it's always trying to figure out how much, someone's indebted to.
Yep.
and you're your own boss. You're indebted to yourself. So, or your clients, so, or your investors and your board. But for you, what was that book, or what was that change of mindset that helped you flip that switch?
Yeah, it was really that trip to Africa, man. Like just the fact that I knew I couldn't do what those other people were doing because how two things. I didn't know how to make money besides my job. I had no idea about this online world and that you could start a business sitting at your computer like I do now. Like I had no idea that it was even possible. I didn't even know where to start. So, I mean, there was that. And then there was the fact that like I had all these bills, man. I had a car that I was paying. Like, I think when I factored in like the car payment, the gas and the insurance, it was like $900 a month just for the car. And all I did was drive it to work. And it sat there all day, and I drove it home, and it sat at home all night. So it was getting used like a tiny fraction of the day, and I was paying so much money for it. And then just like going out all the time to bars, like spending a ton of money and living in a nice house. And like some of that stuff is nice, but you just have to figure out what you actually want. Like do you want a brand new Beamer and a 3-story house, right? Or a nice high-rise condo. Like, cool. If you do, just know that unless you want to start a successful business, you're going to be working in that job that you may hate for the rest of your life. Or can you like totally downsize your life, not be so dependent on that job, and do something that you actually want to do? And I think there's a big difference with like, a lot of creatives that are working in the corporate world, right? They've built this life that they can't not sustain unless they have that corporate job. Mm-hmm. So they can't follow their passion because they have fell into this consumer mindset. So
no, it's true. It's the idea of security. And I think it's just really awesome that I got to talk to you about this, because you're coming from an entrepreneurial background as well as a corporate background, which I totally understand. And it's really amazing that you've also created a content creation agency and a technology company. So it's really impressive, right? And so I just want to acknowledge you for just being a badass.
No, man, I'm really not, dude. I promise. Like I am so not different than anybody listening. Like I was not an entrepreneur. I was not anything. I'm still not anything special, that's for sure. But it's just, it all comes down to taking action. If you take action enough times, like eventually something is going to work out. Like it's just like there's some physics law out there that I'm sure applies to what I'm trying to say. But like if you do it enough times, like eventually it's going to work. Right? If you try enough times, eventually it's going to work. And that I just kept trying and trying to figure stuff out. And eventually I found a little niche for myself. And once we figured out how to get somebody to pay us money, it was off to the races.
Love it.
Yep.
Well, Ryan, I don't want to keep up, take up more of your time. I know you're a busy man. But before we go, I'd love to have you just give some advice for any other creative people out there, people who are in the 9-to-5 jobs.
Yep.
The ones who are stuck in that consumer mindset and the employee mindset, and who want to get out. What would you say would be kind of like the first steps, or the one thing, or just, I guess, the best thing for them to do in order for them to go towards that path of independence and freedom and happiness?
Yeah. First off, appreciate you having me on. It was fun chatting with you. But I would say probably two things. One, the financial stuff. So just like figure out where you're at as it relates to that, and how you can not be in that position if you don't like where you're at. And two, I think the best skill that anybody can learn, whether you're a painter or somebody making beats online or producing film, learn sales and marketing. Mm-hmm. Like it maybe sales more than marketing, right? They kind of work together. But if you can learn those two skills, you're going to be fine. Because you may think of yourself as a creative, but at some point, if you want to keep being creative, you got to figure out how to like monetize that passion. And if you learn sales and you learn like the basic psychological principles that are the foundation of sales, then you're going to be golden. Like you'll go way further than other people in your space that don't want to get out of their comfort zone and learn this stuff, because it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be totally new to a creative to get out there and start learning sales. to start learning marketing. But once you do, like the whole world is going to open up to you. All these different avenues are going to, the way you talk to people is going to be different. When somebody's interested in your stuff, you're not going to be scared to charge them more than $15 because why would anybody want to pay me more than that? No, there's value in this. You have to learn how to convey the value of what you're doing and the products that you put time and effort into. So yeah, learn sales and marketing. That's the best advice I could give.
I dig it. Totally agree. And so Ryan, let us know where we could find you and how we could support you online.
Yeah, man. If you like podcasts, obviously, if you're listening to this one, Hustle to Freedom is my podcast. And my agency is called Legacy Podcasting. Just Google it. You'll find it. And the tool that I'm working on, the software tool, is called Melville, and that's Melville.app.
Dope. All right. Well, I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for getting on the Zoom call and doing this podcast with me. It was a really cool conversation, and hopefully we can keep in touch, man, because there's a lot of cool stuff that you're doing, and I'd love to see how I can support and collab with you.
Yeah, Mitchell. Man, it was great chatting. Talk soon.
For sure. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Haven podcast. And if you dig it and like what you heard today, please give us a nice review and rating and share it with one of your friends that you think needs some creative inspiration. You can always find more content and resources at thecreativehaven.com and hit me up on Instagram at Mitchel Dumlao. And if you want to reach out, collab, or ask any questions, you have my permission to slide into my DM. So keep positive, continue to learn and hone your craft, and create all day. Salamat.